Welcome back to the Eye on College Basketball Podcast on CBS Sports Network. We have mentioned Jerry Palm's updated bracket several times throughout the show. Let's dive into it now. It's that time of the year, Norlander. Or let me ask, do you agree? Is it that time of the year? Is it too early to start looking at brackets? I don't think so.
I appreciate the question. I personally, I have a personal philosophy when it comes to this. I don't take stock in bracket forecasts until we get to February as a personal rule, only because so much can change between now and then. The bracketology creep can feel a little bit much. I like to focus on players, results, storylines, because once we get into Valentine's Day, understandably so, bracket projections really take hold, as they should. But GP, I'm more than happy to make some fun and talk some brackets here on this segment here, because you take a scan and you look at what he's got up at the site right now, and not only are you see all the SEC programs there, you start to get a look at, like, okay, we've seen what these teams are doing, but if we did start the tournament today, what do we have here? Oh, Purdue, 4 seed, Michigan State, 3 seed, Houston. That's one of the best teams in KenPom, but it's down at a 7 line. So you see stuff like that in addition to the 1 seeds. And why don't you tell folks who Palm has on the 1 lines as of Tuesday afternoon?
Auburn, Iowa State, Duke, and Alabama are his 4 number 1 seeds. I think at this point, everybody would agree on Auburn, Iowa State, and Duke, as long as you're not factoring in Janai Broom's injury. Let me ask you this question. If the NCAA tournament were starting next week and Janai Broom were injured, would you seed line bump Auburn? Would you say, of course, that's the resume of a number 1 seed, but in the spirit of Kenyon Martin, we're taking Auburn and dropping them down to a 2 seed? Would that factor in?
Well, I've got to line edit you here. I believe you used the term seed line bump. Seed line bump is a move up. Seed line knock is the terminology for the move
seed
down.
Knock. Just my
seed line knock.
My
okay. I would not.
Dumb terminology.
Well, listen. Without language, where are we? Okay. I would still have Auburn.
Probably
on the
better
line.
off, honestly.
Yeah, without the ability to communicate through words, we'd be better off.
I mean, not you and I personally, but I think as a society, maybe
as a species.
Yes.
Nothing like a little linguistic debate on the Eye on College Basketball Podcast. What do you want from us? I think Auburn would still be a 1 seed. It might be knocked in the overall seed issue, but frankly, if we know this is the case, if Broom suffered that injury, call it in the SEC semis on a Saturday, the projection and messaging out of Auburn would have been like, we think we're getting him back Thursday in the first round. Come on, we know that's the case. So, but even if it was, say, it's undetermined, hopefully we get him back within 2 weeks, I think they would keep Auburn on the 1 line. I think Palm's 1 seeds are correct. Auburn, Iowa State, Bama, Duke. I don't have an issue with that. You can make a case for Tennessee, and I think you can make a case for Florida. I mentioned Oregon earlier. Oregon right now is a projected 2 seed from Palm, 7 quad 1 wins. That is indeed tied with Auburn for the most. Oregon has more losses. That's why it's projected a little bit further there. But the Ducks are kind of a sneaky bracket team right now. But I'm going with all the 1 seeds. I think they all stand up to scrutiny.
I'm fine with it. I would have it slightly different. I told Jerry this yesterday, I believe. I would have it Auburn, Iowa State, Duke, and Florida as opposed to Alabama. But I've got Alabama 5th in the top 25 and 1. So Alabama would be my top 2 seed instead of my worst 1 seed. We're really splitting hairs there. You mentioned Houston. Let's discuss them because it is an interesting situation that is developing. I've got Houston 21st in the top 25 and 1. They're 3rd in the net. So every morning, that's an exaggeration, not every morning, but some mornings, some Houston fan will remind me that I have Houston wildly underrated. And I might, from a computer perspective, I do from a computer perspective, from a point spread perspective, but as you know, I tried to rank teams in a similar way that the selection committee would rank teams, would seed teams. So when I see Jerry Palm take the same approach and put Houston as a 7 seed, that falls in line more with what I think Houston should be than what the computers suggest Houston is. Because the Cougars, we've been playing more than 2 months now. They're 0-3 in quadrant 1. They have 0 quadrant 1 wins. So this is a great basketball team, elite basketball team, legitimate national championship contender on paper, but they don't have any big wins yet. And they'll have plenty of opportunities in the Big 12. But on Selection Sunday, just having strong computer numbers is not going to be enough there's a scenario where Houston could be top 10 at KenPom and not be seated anywhere close to what that suggests, the place you should be seated.
Houston's a program that has been the last standing team before taking its first loss in recent seasons. It's made a Final Four. It has been ranked near the top of every predictive metric that we've had over the past half decade. And so this is a little bit of an unusual spot for Houston to be in, because we've gotten to the second, we're just about into the third week of January, and the cake still very much needs to bake. Everything you laid out is completely correct. Houston's 3 losses are to its 3 best teams it's faced: Auburn, Alabama, and San Diego State. They were all close losses. 2 of them came in overtime, but they were losses all the same. And we will not get a Houston game of real note until Saturday, January 25th, when Houston plays at Kansas. That'll be a biggie. It's got that, and then West Virginia back to back. It will have the opportunities to get that. It's just going to take longer. Its resume is going to take longer to build out. And right now, there is a stark difference. Houston is number 1 in Torvik. It's 3rd at KenPom. It's 1st in BPI, which is a team sheet metric. But in the resume-based metrics right now, KPI 31, strength of record 26, and wins above bubble, which is a new metric, which is a really good metric, is 35. So I don't have an issue with where Houston is slated by Palm right now. In fact, it's hard to find many that are too underseeded or too overseeded, because we're halfway through. So we need many more results. But among the most interesting resumes and teams and situations out there, right on the head, JP, I'd put Houston up there with the likes of a different kind of team. I'd say Dayton and what they might build out to be is going to be pretty fascinating. And then generally speaking, Duke is on the 1 line, but if Duke takes 1 or 2 bad losses in the ACC, if that even happens, I think they'll have an intriguing resume case on whether or not they should be a 1 once we get to March.